Okay, so for those of you who have prior experience with Project Server, you actually pretty much already know what Project Online is. The difference is that Project Online is a service. It allows collaboration by teams across tasks, projects, programs, and then of course all of this is over the web. You can edit a projects, create a projects via the web UI. So that's really nice. So as we drill in, let's first talk about what the skills are. So if you go out to our office.microsoft.com/project site, you'll notice that this page right there, and there are actually three skills. If you go out there, you'll find that there is the project management skill, which covers Project Pro for Office 365, and a page for our session in 2 weeks. That's the topic that we'll be talking about. Then there is project management for teams. This is essentially Project Pro for Office 365 plus Project Online. And then there is the project portfolio management skill, which covers primarily Project Online, which is what we are talking about today. And if you go out to that page, there's the option to sign up for it and the variety of sign up options. There is one piece of content here that I wanted to highlight, and that is that you notice there isn't a trial for Project Online. We recognize that Project Online is one of those products that does take quite a fair bit of work to get configured. So we do highly encourage for our customers, especially if you have potentially a fairly complex setup you have in mind. Our project partners are super awesome, have a bunch of experience, and you can go through them to help get set up with a trial or get set up with a proof of concept. That really is the best route to go. Certainly, we have a variety of content that we'll highlight later. For those of you who want to sort of try it out on your own, that's an avenue as well. But that's something that we highly encourage everyone to go down. Okay, so Project Online, what does it look like? So essentially, Project Online is a skill. We often use the terms sort of project sites to describe the associated SharePoint site for that particular project, and this is what it looks like. So here's a sample project out on the project side. This holds all of the collateral related to that particular project. So there could be documents in here. There is a newsfeed section for folks to have collaborations, discussions. There's a timeline. We've got issues, risks associated with the project that you can link to, and a variety of sort of SharePoint site related items that's super handy. Again, for collaboration related to the project. Then, of course, we have the plan details. So this is what you would see in Project Web Access. And essentially, it allows you visibility into the project plan. You can drill in, look at the plan. Project managers with the right permissions can open up the plan, make edits to it. We could have executives can look at sort of project center summary view to look at a dashboard of how things are progressing along. So really nice. All of this via a web UI. And then for those who enjoy some of the more advanced capabilities, you can perform portfolio analysis. Essentially allows you to input a set of proposed work items, projects, and have it go through the prioritization process to sort of define which ones best meets the strategic direction that the organization is going. But again, all this does require a fair bit of configuration. We have wonderful documentation that shows you kind of how to do it. But like we mentioned earlier, having someone who has a lot of experience, especially if you are completely new to this, will help as well.
So thank you. That's a good coverage of what Project Online is. So I'll briefly sort of talk about what it isn't. And I think this comes from working with customers early after the release of Project Online. And I think obviously with some of the other Office applications, we've got Word Online, or we've got Office Online now, but we've obviously had the Office web app. So we've had Excel and Word that you can use through a browser. And I think the initial confusion where some people saw Project Online, oh, it must be like Project Standard, but I'm just using it through a browser instead. And as Ake's shown you, that's not quite the case. It's really more like an Outlook Web Access equivalent, in that it gives you a rich collaborative environment to work on projects. It does allow you to do some scheduling in the web, but if you're a really sort of power user of Project Standard or Project Professional, it's probably not going to be the easiest way to put together sort of very large complex project plans. And that's no different really to Excel. I mean, the Excel web app is fantastic, but if you're sort of doing some financial analysis and got some huge models that you're working on, you're probably going to be using the Excel desktop app, even the 64-bit version, to get the best experience. No different from Project. If you're doing some sort of complex leveling, thousands of tasks, hundreds of resources, you're going to be using Project Professional, Project Pro for Office 365 in the subscription form, rather than using the web schedule. Now, obviously, there's nothing to stop you creating a very large schedule in Project Pro for Office 365. Once you publish it to your Project Online environment, you can view it through the schedule web part, and if you want to make some minor edits, then yeah, there's no problem with going in and adding a few tasks or changing a task name, that kind of thing. So the two work in a complementary fashion, but the key thing is that if you just want Project Standard, Project Online isn't an online version of Project that you would use. So you can either use Project Pro for Office 365 with Project Online, or you could just use it standalone in the way that you'd use Project Standard, or you could combine it and use it with SharePoint and save your projects as task lists to SharePoint with no Project Online in the equation at all. We'll clarify how that all fits together in 2 weeks' time when we drill in more on Project Pro for Office 365. So now you know what it is, how do you sign up? And it really depends where you're starting from. If you're already using an enterprise E3 level of Office 365, sort of SharePoint Online, then you can add Project Online as an additional product to your subscription. And for that, you would just go to the Office 365 Admin Center and purchase services. It's down the left-hand side. And it will always be this URL, regardless of what your URL is that you're using for your Office 365. If you go to this URL, it will take you to the purchase services option. If you don't see Project Online listed there, then it's probable that you're using a level of Office 365 that doesn't currently support Project Online, such as the lower levels, the mid-sized business, the small business, that kind of stuff. So that's if you've already got Office 365, you can add Project Online. If you haven't, then potentially you can just sign up for Project Online. So you don't need to sign up for SharePoint and then buy Project on top of that. You can just sign up for Project Online. So I've put the URL in there. It will take you to this page. There's a double check, the little highlighted area at the top left. If you are really meaning to add it to your Office 365 subscription you've already got, then you sign in at this point. If you haven't got one, then obviously you don't need to sign in, you'll just complete the details. But we did see some situations where a customer would not sign in at that point, and they'd end up having sort of two different environments. So they'd have their Office 365 on one URL, and then they'd create their Project Online on a different one. So that's not normally what you want to do. You want to sign in and add it to what you're doing. So I've got a couple of slides on the sign-on experience. The first one sort of took you through the top bit. The second one sort of shows you where you put your user ID in, you create your password, you put the captcha in, and you get a sort of a verification code as well that you can use to sort of continue on there. But rather than sort of use screenshots, I'm going to walk you through the process in a sort of short video that I've captured. The process takes a little while. I think probably the first part of it in terms of signing up is reasonably quick, sort of 5-10 minutes, but the project bit can sort of add another sort of 15 minutes, half an hour sometimes onto that until project is sort of up and ready to use. So I didn't want to sit here and make you suffer through that. So I captured a video that shows the process and also a few other things along the way. Now, in this example, I am actually signing up for a trial SharePoint E3 tenant. That's really to give you the sign-up experience. And then I'm going to add to that Project Online. So that sort of shows you both scenarios. The first one, I'm actually buying SharePoint E3, so I'm not actually not buying Project Online, but it will give you the same sort of experience. And Ake mentioned earlier on the offer that we do for partner-led trials. You can get to that through the Find a Partner, but also the project team did a blog post on that as well, on those and how they work. So this is the video. I'll set it running. So I'm going to be buying an Office 365 E3 Enterprise here. And I sort of get taken to a bit more information. I'm actually going to go for the free trial. So this is the page that you saw earlier on, where I'm going to sort of put in all my details. So I've skipped over some of these areas, like I think I skip over the credit card bit fairly quickly, but normally you put in an email address where you want the information sent. So you don't put the email address that you're going to create in your environment, because obviously you wouldn't have access to that yet. So I then go through and put in my various address details, phone number, what my organization's called. I've used the Global Business Support, Microsoft GBS. It doesn't really matter for this particular thing. And here I put in a user ID. So I'm going to use Bryce Smith, and the next part becomes part of your domain. So I'm going to use PJO Webcast as the one that I'm going to create for this particular one. And then I'm going to create my strong password for that. You can also set up, obviously with Office 365, you can have your own sort of custom domains as well. But this is the sort of the domain that you'd sort of get out of the box. So I can now go through with some verifications on this. I hide my phone number so you can't sort of phone me up afterwards and ask me questions. But feel free to send me emails or questions on the blog post. That will work as well. So what this verification does, it sends a text to me. I then look at my phone, I get the text message, and I type in the numbers, and I create my account. And all should be good. So obviously I was signing up for a trial there. There was no credit card put in at that point, but you will see well, you won't see a credit card, but when I do the next piece of adding Project Online. So this is where everything's working, everything's provisioning, and now I'm going to skip over to the sort of purchase services part and look at the things that I can add to that particular SKU. So there's plenty of different things. There's the new BI stuff. There's different SKUs that you can sort of move up to. You can add licenses for the number of users you want. So I think the trial is 25. I could come in here and add extra users if I wanted to as well. And here we're seeing some of the Project Online ones as well. The one I think I'm going to sign up for is the Project Online with Project Pro for Office 365, which gives me the web interface, but also gives me a license to use Project as well. So I'm just scrolling through to sort of show you the full range of things here. So there's plenty of different options available. So I'm going for Project Online with Project Pro for Office 365. Just a diversion to the Learn More, where this shows the screen that Ake showed you earlier on, where you can sort of see Project Online. You can have a look around, see what it's all about, find a partner, and so on. But I'm going to go for the $58 per user per month. You can go for an annual fee as well, which sort of reduces the price. And I'm just going to use one license because I'm cheap like that, and I just needed one license to show this. And I'm going to go through the checkout process. Agree to the legal stuff. Of course, I read that, but I assumed you probably wouldn't want to read that this morning and take up good time. Go on to next. And then I can sort of choose how I want to pay. I'm going to do the sort of pay per month. I can put in information here. So I selected a particular credit card, and I think I then sort of whiz off the screen and don't show you too much more about that. I mean, the process is just like shopping for anything, shoes or whatever, but in this case you're buying Project Online. So I continue, my order's completed, and at this point I can go into my admin center and I can see what's going on. And I can see under SharePoint that it started work on provisioning my PWA. But at this point, it's not completed. I'm just sort of taking a slight diversion to show you some of the emails you'll get. So you'll get an email. This is the one from the Enterprise E3 trial, which sort of has some resources on it. And then this is the one for Project Online with Project Pro. We are working on expanding this email to give you a lot more links to our getting started information, because that was another thing that we learned from our early support cases, is that there's not really enough meat in this email to get going. You know, you bought something, but this doesn't really give you all the information you need to get started with it, which is sort of where this webcast really sort of came from. So you can see my PWA is spinning there. It takes a little while to run through. I also can see that I've got no PWA instances available. Once we're finished, we should see that we've got 3 available, and we can sort of work on those. So my first one's actually finished and provisioned for me, and it's under the pjowebcast.sharepoint.com/site/pwa. And if I click on that, it will take me to the site. But I don't have a license yet to use the Project Web App because I haven't assigned it to myself. So this is another thing that catches people out. You've got the PWA, but you need to assign the license so that you can actually use it. So I've got one license, but of course I might be assigning it to somebody else. So under licensing, I can see what I've got. So I've got the Project Online with Project Pro for Office 365, and I've got the E3 trial. And under users and groups, I've just got me as a user, and I've already got the E3 SKU, but I haven't checked any licenses against Project Online. Now, because a couple of them show up in both plans, I can uncheck those and just use those licenses that I need for Project Online. And now if I go back to PWA and click again, I can't remember whether I left this in the recording or not, but this may well fail again, because it does take a while for the license stuff to all synchronize through. So again, you have to be patient at times, and some of this sort of synchronization of users and licenses isn't always immediate. Just showing you some of the other settings here. There's a couple of different permission modes available with Project. I'm just going to pause at that point. And there's a SharePoint permission mode, which is probably going to be the one that most new users to Project Online will feel most comfortable with. It's a little bit easier to manage in terms of how you get to the sites and who you give access to the sites. And the sort of project managers can sort of manage that and just use the share option to give availability to whoever they want to use it. The project permission mode will be familiar to you if you've used Project Server in previous versions in 2007, 2010. And it works very much the same way, so that you have groups and categories, and it does a lot of automation of who can have access to things, but it can get fairly complex in terms of the management of all of those groups and categories. So SharePoint permissions mode is sometimes a useful way of working for smaller teams, or to be able to sort of give control to the project managers over who can access their projects and sites and that kind of thing. Project Server 2013 also supports both of these modes as well. So I'll just get moving on after that. So I'm just going to cancel out of that. I can also go up to New, and from there I can create a new private site collection with Project Web App. So there's a couple of options. You can either sort of add project to a web app that you've already got, or you can create a brand new one as well. You can see there I've got 2 PWA instances available. So we let you have 3. We create one for you automatically, and that one we create is also accessible from the menu as well, the top menu as well. So the other thing I sort of wanted to go into was how you get to your Project Pro for Office 365. Just go back into see if our PWA is ready first. I think at this point I decided to close my browsers and re-log in again just to see whether the permissions needed a bit of a jolt. So again, that might be something that you need to do. If it's sort of caching, that might be quicker to sort of get back in rather than wait for the cache to come out. So here I'm getting directly into my Office 365 site, and I can go into the admin and SharePoint from there, back into PWA. And yes, it's loaded, so it's all good and ready to go. There's a group of these sort of tiles across the top, which are the getting started ones. So they really introduce you to it. You can remove those once you've sort of got used to things. And then down the left-hand side, you can get to sort of your projects and resources. And we give some help there in terms of getting started, how to add a project. And also in the resource center, if you've got no resources, we'll say, oh, click here if you want to synchronize to a group, or click on the new option in the resources tab. And I'll talk a little bit more about creating projects and resources in a short while.
And by the way, a quick tip as well. If you're running into the problem with the license not being assigned issue, like what Brian showed you, so logging off, logging on, that's a really cool way to do it. We found also that if you just do like Control F5, so give it some time, doing a Control F5, that seems to work quite well as well.
Okay, that's good. Thanks, Tate. But the other place you can get to PWA is through the ellipses and then click Projects, and that will take you to your default PWA site. So in terms of the tiles here, the first one talks about creating or importing projects. So that sort of talks you through a wizard. There's a Get Started guide on TechNet, so you can click through from that tile and it will take you to there. There's a download link for Project Pro for Office 365 if you're licensed for that. A link to the reports, some information on sharing your site, details of more features such as the timesheets, resources, workflows, how to brand your site if you want to add a logo and description, and finally how to add lists, libraries and other applications, because a lot of our partners are writing apps that can be loaded on Project Online. And then the usual tracking ones below for projects, approvals, tasks and reports as well. And you can customize these to sort of suit how your organization works and add ones that are more useful. Now, I clicked on the Get Started one in the top line, and this takes you over to TechNet and will show you our great Get Started content. And again, this is something we've developed over the year since releasing Project Online as we learned where people were having issues. So we've been through the sign up. Under Add People, we've got some really cool videos that sort of will walk you through adding resources. And we also do some screenshots of the various steps that you will take to sort of get those resources into the system. So some great content up there on TechNet. So that's the sort of adding resources link. Then going back up to the top, once you've worked out what resources are all about, you can go to Create Projects. And again, some really cool videos that will sort of step you through the process so you can sort of see how to go through those steps. Whether that's creating a project direct in Project Online, importing a task list, installing Project Pro, and then creating and publishing a project with Project Pro for Office 365 as well. So plenty of steps there to sort of take you through. And a nice link there at the bottom to the forums where you can sort of also be asking for assistance if you need any help sort of going through that. Then the final points I wanted to just drill into was, okay, I bought Project Pro for Office 365. We've got a link in the tiles there. There's a couple of other places where you can get to it. One is download software under the admin shortcuts. And there you can install the various different applications that you might have subscriptions to. Project is listed on the left-hand side, and you can install directly from there. And the other option is going into About Me, and then going under the gear wheel and my specific Office 365 settings. So these aren't the admin settings, but they're mine. And over on the left-hand side, you can see there that it will take me to software as well. So there's a couple of different ways of getting to Project Pro for Office 365 as well as the option of going from the tile at the start as well. So I think that's all of the video. So obviously there's some points there where it's a little bit slow and I've speeded it up by cutting it out of the video. But I'll hand over to Ake to tell you how to fill those minutes while you're waiting.
Yeah, and Brian, like Brian showed you, so we wanted to add the slide so that you had a handy reference for it. And so while you're waiting, review the wonderful content that we have out there that really covers a lot of the top questions that for folks that are new to it. It's a very easy read, like Brian showed you. There's videos, there's screen captures, it steps you through the process. Really, really nice. A point to highlight is that as you grow and get familiar with some of these basic concepts of how to get started, then that's where you want to grow toward using our TechNet documentation. So there's a rich variety of guides out there related to the topic of configuring your server, getting everything set up and needed. So lots of material out there. So like what Brian showed you, just a quick screen capture of what it looks like, the table of contents of all these top areas that folks commonly call about as they get started. And then of course, really nice, easy, friendly instructions to get you going on it. And another quick tip, sort of reinforcing what Brian had showed in the demo earlier, is that as sort of where to go. So the portal.microsoftonline.com URL, there's the same URL. You just need to log in with your username, password. It would know based on your username, password, what your tenant is, and take you right to the admin center. Okay, and yes, exactly what Brian showed. If you have to remember sort of a few key things, admin shortcuts section on the top right is your best bet for the most common actions to perform. And then if you were to drill into users and groups, then that's where you would go in. You can configure, add new users. With existing users, you can of course go in and reset their passwords, delete. You can go in and assign licenses like what Brian showed earlier. So if nothing else, and I think oftentimes the feedback that we hear from customers who've just purchased a project online is that a lot of this can feel a little bit overwhelming. But as you remember some of these basic sort of key pieces of info and places to go to, you should be good to go as far as getting started, getting your basic projects in the system.
Yeah, thanks, Ake. So I talked about some of this as I was going through the video. So getting started for real, adding people. Just a few terms that if you're not familiar with using project or project server that may be confusing. Resources and users, sort of what's the difference? So resources are the people or things that you can manage in your project. So you'll assign a resource to do a task. And then users are the people who will use Project Online. So they may be resources too. So Ake Chen may be a resource in my project plan who's going to do some work. He may also be a user. There might be some external contractors, for example, where perhaps you don't allow them access to your project online, but you have them there as a resource, and then you get some other way of getting information from them for statusing. So resources can be users, but they're not always. And then users can be resources, but they're not always. You might have an executive who needs access to be able to review some of the project plans, who may not actually be anybody that ever does any work, because obviously executives don't. But so you don't need to assign him. He doesn't need to be a resource, or it doesn't do any work on your project plans. Is obviously what I meant to say there. So that's really sort of the differentiation between the resources and users. And users need Project Online licenses, and they must be in your Office 365 tenant. SharePoint has some concepts of external users, but we don't support that in Project Online. So you can't have an external user accessing Project Online information in the way an external user could access a simple SharePoint site, for example. And then in terms of the sharing of PWA on the other project sites, that is the top right-hand side on any page. There's a share option, and from the share option, you can decide who has access and what level of access they have. So I could say, okay, I'm going to share this with Ake, and he can be an administrator, and I'm going to share this with Kate, and she can be a project manager, and so on. And that different permission level sort of lets them do different things within the application itself. And again, on TechNet, there's plenty of information that drills into what those different things are and what the different permission levels will allow the users to do. And then adding projects. There's lots of different ways of adding projects. The tile in the Getting Started grid will sort of take you to several of those. You could start a project just as a task list in SharePoint. You could start it as a full-blown enterprise project that you either create in the web, in the scheduled web part, or you could be using Project Pro for Office 365. You can also turn task lists into enterprise projects as well, so you can sort of mix between them and get those task list projects to show up in the Project Center, which is like the central portal where you can see all of your different projects that you're currently working on. In a similar way, enterprise projects, when you publish them to your Project Online environment, their tasks are written out to the project site task list as well. You wouldn't edit them through there, you'd edit them through either the scheduled web part or Project Pro for Office 365. But they're viewable there, and they also fulfill other functions there as well, in terms of linking those to documents and issues and risks and all those kinds of things. And you could attach workflows to those as well. So there's lots of good reasons for having those. So if after today we haven't answered all of your questions, I think that's probably guaranteed that we certainly wouldn't be able to answer everything you'd want to know. We do have plenty of other places where you can go to look for that information. We've got a couple of blogs. Our main one is blogs.technet.com/project support. That's our team support blog. I've also been running for some considerable time blogs.msdn.com/Bryce Smith. So I still post to that one. A lot of the posts I do there are sort of links over to the other one because it's been around a bit longer, so it tends to sort of show up a bit higher up the search lists when you go onto Bing or your other favorite search engine. So between both of those, you should get sort of access to everything that we sort of post out there when we sort of want to give guidance or we find there's a problem. We'll sort of push things out there to help people get around particular issues that we may have been alerted to or noticed. The link there again to our Get Started content, so I think we've got that on a few of the slides because that really is an important place to sort of get out to and get working on. And then a link there to the TechNet forums as well. So this will take you directly to the Project Online forum. There are forums as well for the on-premises project server, as well as Project Standard, and also a sort of a customization and development forum as well. And there's a lot of good people that sort of work on those forums. Some of our MVP, the product group, the support teams, get out onto those forums to sort of help answer questions. And a lot of the community itself, a lot of people probably on this call are going out to the forums and helping other people with their sort of issues as well. The other thing in terms of support is within the Office 365 Admin Center, down the left-hand side, there is a support option. And if you click on that, on the right-hand side, there's an option to create a new service request, which will create a support call through to our teams. If you're lucky, you won't get through to me and Ake, because it normally means if you get through to us, you've got a really bad problem. But if you need us, we're here, and if it needs to get to us, it will get to us. So don't worry about that. But we've got a great team of people that will be sort of working on supporting you with the Office 365 and Project Online questions that you might have. The other option, of course, if you're a large customer with a Premier contract, you can open cases through your Premier contract as well. That obviously gives you a slightly different avenue into Microsoft and potential other benefits there that you'll get through having that Premier contract. So that's just about all that we had for the sort of delivered part of the session. We've seen a few questions coming in, and we're certainly happy to answer those. And the slide there, you can certainly email back to Heather to give